everyone, my name is Elaine, and today I'm going to be both summarizing and reviewing the fourth book in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, Mort. Starting off with the summary. Death studies one of his hourglasses. He sees a boy running inside of it and says, yes. Mort and his family are farmers that make wine out of reannual grapes, but Mort isn't very talented in the horticulture department. His father and his uncle consider taking him to the hiring fair at Sheepridge the following week to try and get him an apprenticeship, since his master will have to whip him into shape and their agreement will be binding. Lizik, Mort's father, takes Mort to the hiring fair to find an apprenticeship. At midnight, Death comes for Mort. Mort becomes his apprentice. Before Mort rides off with Death, Lizik speaks to his son about his potential to inherit his new master's undertaking business. Death takes Mort to Ankh-Morpork. He stores the souls of 3 dead kittens in his robes. Over curry, Death explains that most people can't see him because their minds won't allow them to until the moment of their death. However, cats and wizards are able to perceive him. He takes Mort to get some new clothes, a black robe, and a haircut. Mort awakens in his bedroom in Death's house. He doesn't believe what has happened to him, dresses, and begins to explore his new home. Isabel, Death's adopted daughter, keeps him from entering a room and leads him to the kitchen where Albert, Death's manservant, prepares Mort's breakfast. Mort is summoned to Death's study. He's asked to muck out the stables. While he works, Mort explains to Isabel that he's Death's new apprentice. She doesn't believe him. Death tells Mort that he intends to leave everything to his daughter. Albert helps Mort saddle Death's horse, Spinky. Death takes Mort with him on a trip to collect King Allure the bastard's soul. Mort is shocked by the sight of a red-haired girl who can see him. Like Death, most people don't notice him. Mort tries to save the king from an assassin, but soon discovers that he can't change the man's fate. The dead king explains that the girl crying over him, the girl Mort noticed, is his daughter. After stowing the king's soul away, Death scolds Mort for trying to save the king. He says that only the gods may decide who lives and who dies, and to try and change the fate of even one man could destroy the world. Death says he won't send Mort home for his mistake, but the boy must learn compassion proper to his trade. That's on page 55. Mort asks for an afternoon off. He is given until sunset. Mort arrives in Ankh-Morpork. He's looking for a fast horse so he can get to Stolat. It seems that he wants to see the red-haired princess again. Mort gets lost and wanders through the shades. 3 men try to rob him, but he escapes by walking through a wall. Death considers sending Mort out alone to collect souls. Mort walks in on a Clatchian family eating a meal. They think he's a demon who will bring them good luck. The father takes him to a place where he can buy a fast horse and is paid handsomely. The father says his family should return to Clatch. He had sold Mort the patrician's champion racehorse. Mort arrives in Stolat, but can't figure out how to get into the castle. He tries to walk through its walls, but he can't manage. Mort visits a wizard named Igneous Cutwell and requests that he look into the art of walking through walls. He provides the wizard with a down payment for his efforts. Death sends Mort out alone to collect souls. Mort begins with Goody hamstring a witch. Despite his fears that he'll screw up, Mort manages to sever the tie that binds her soul to her body. Afterwards, Goody decides to stay until she fades away. She kisses his cheek before disappearing from view. Mort continues on to the next soul he was meant to collect. Mort collects the soul of the Abbey of the Holy Listeners and helps get him ready to reincarnate again. Mort saves Princess Kelly from assassination by killing the assassin. Afterwards, Mort and Kelly talk on her bed, study her hourglass. The top bulb has been emptied of sand. Princess ought to be dead, but isn't due to Mort's actions, which are bound to get him in a lot of trouble. Kelly asks if they'll see each other again. Mort doesn't think it's a good idea. Before riding off, Mort warns Kelly to beware of the Duke. Upon his return to Death's estate, Mort reads Princess Kelly's biography. He groans at some of what he reads and resolves to speak to Albert about what he has done. Before he leaves the library, he notices that someone else has been reading the biographies, someone who left behind a damp lace handkerchief. Mort speaks to Albert during breakfast. Albert explains that he has been working for Death since the death of the old king in Ankh-Morpork, but Ankh-Morpork doesn't have kings. Albert scolds Mort for not putting his library books back. Mort returns to the library. He wonders what Isabel was looking for. As he looks up at the shelves, he thinks about what is beginning to occur and resolves to tell someone. The universe knows Kelly is dead despite her still walking about. It shows her in small ways. For example, no one seems to notice her passing. Kelly speaks to a maid and discovers where to find Cutwell, the wizard. Upon her arrival on his doorstep, she knocks and realizes that the wizard can see her after he tells her they're closed and slams the door in her face. She tries knocking again, and when the door opens, begs for the wizard's assistance. The princess asks Cutwell to tell her fortune. He pronounces her dead. He says that her existence could be fatal for those outside herself, that something very fundamental seems to have gone wrong. You're dead in every sense, but the actual. I mean, the cards think you're dead, your lifeline thinks you're dead, everything and everyone thinks you're dead. That's on 118. He says there is nothing she can do to change that. Kelly refuses to accept his words and enlists the wizard's help. She appoints Cutwell Royal Recognizer. His job is to remind everyone that she's still alive. Mort speaks with Death. Mort won't admit what he's done and takes the blame for messing up the books in the library, taking them out, etc. Once out of earshot, Isabel thanks him for taking the blame. They begin walking together, discuss how they're not interested in marrying each other. Isabel explains that her parents were killed crossing the Great great Neff years ago, and death took her in afterwards. That's on 130. Mort admits what he has done, but she doesn't hear him. Isabel explains that she has been 16 for 35 years because time stands still in death's estate. She's been reading the books in the library to live a little. She really likes the romantic ones. Mort returns to death's study and discovers that he's being sent to collect souls again. Readers discover that the misplaced stroke of Mort's scythe had cut history into two separate realities. In the city of Stolat, Princess Kelly still ruled, with a certain amount of difficulty and with the full-time aid of the royal recognizer. In the lands outside, though, beyond the plain and the ram tops, around the Circle Sea and all the way to the rim, the traditional reality still held sway, and she was quite definitely dead. The Duke was king, and the world was proceeding sedately according to plan, whatever that was. The point is that both realities were true. The sort of historical event horizon was currently about 20 miles away from the city, and wasn't yet very noticeable. That's because call it the difference in historical pressures, wasn't yet very great, but it was growing. Out in the damp cabbage fields, there was a shimmer in the air and a faint sizzle, like frying grasshoppers. Inch by inch, implacable as a glacier and far colder, the real reality was grinding back towards Stolat. That's on 136-7. While out collecting souls, Mort becomes the first person to notice the borderland of reality, a crescent of faint silver mist. That's on 137. He and Binky head inside the mist. Mort stops at the Queen's Head Inn for a drink. Mort drinks scumble and buys rounds for everyone in the bar. He begins to freak out when the misty barrier comes through the wall. No one seems to notice the border or the changes that Mort notices taking place. The innkeeper's change of shirt, the inn's new name, the Duke's head, etc. The people of the inn begin to feel uncomfortable. Mort flees from the inn, passing through the door without opening it 3 times. From atop Binky, Mort notices reality gradually healing itself, knows that the center of the dome is Stolat, tries not to think about what will happen as it continues to get smaller and smaller. Mort rides through Stolat and finds posters of Princess Kelly plastered everywhere. He pulls one off Cutwell's gargoyle door knocker and discovers that the wizard is at the palace with Kelly. Mort heads to the castle. Cutwell finds him and explains that he hasn't had much time to work on Mort's request, and that he's behind all the posters and portraits of the princess. Mort tells him about the misty dome. The wizard wants to know all about it, especially things like how quickly it's moving. The wizard senses that something bad is going to happen and Mort is involved somehow. Mort thinks it'll be bad for the princess. Cutwell realizes Mort is Death's assistant. Cutwell leads Mort into his room to talk. Cutwell admits he had been expecting the dome, but isn't sure what it'll do, only that history will heal itself. But he has been trying to get people to believe in the princess. Then this new reality could become the real one, he reckoned. That if enough people believed in her, they could change reality. It works for gods. If people stop believing in a god, he dies. If a lot of them believe in him, he grows stronger. That's on 162. Mort recognizes the author picture in a book Cutwell owns. It's Malik, the founder of Unseen University. Mort asks Cutwell if he can stop the dome with magic. Cutwell says he can't. He surmises that the dome will arrive tomorrow at midnight, just in time for the princess's coronation. Mort asks to be taken to see the princess. Death attends a party for the 10th anniversary of the patrician's accession. He takes part in the serpent dance and learns about what it means to have fun from Lord Rodley of Quirm. Mort speaks to Kelly and offers to take her away. She decides that she wants to die nobly as opposed to being rescued. Again. Cutwell shoots Mort in the back with a crossbow bolt. The bolt passes through Mort. The princess and Cutwell remark how this is similar to what they have seen before. He has passed through stone pillars, bedposts, etc. Mort thinks he can help, save the princess by holding the dome back with magic. Death drinks excessively at the mended drum while conducting an experiment on drunkenness. The innkeeper throws him out early in the morning. Mort gets Isabel out of bed and enlists her help in finding Alberto Malik's, aka Albert's, biography in the library. She leads him to the stacks, where the biographies that are more than 500 years old are kept. That's on 187. Isabel finds an entire shelf full of books about Albert in the stacks. Death doesn't see the point in many human pleasures and doubts he'll ever really understand them. He realizes he's enjoying being alive and is reluctant to be death. While reading Albert's latest biography, Mort and Isabel realize that Albert is coming toward them. Isabel drops a book on Albert to keep him from pushing them off the ladder for prying into his private life. Mort tries to enlist his help in saving the princess, but Albert won't hear of it. Isabel takes Mort to bed as he concludes that he is to tell Death what's going on and enlist his help. Death goes to see a job broker about getting a new job. He can't walk through the wall during his demonstration, and the broker is at a loss about what job to suggest until Death reveals his true identity. Then the man has a job for him to try. Isabel wakes Mort up. She and Albert are freaking out because Death has not returned home. Isabel agrees to work on the nodes with Albert and Mort's help. It's rather important, since they stop Death from getting out of control. Not him, not Death, just Death itself. Like, Death should come exactly at the end of life, and not before or after. That's on 206. Death works as a cook at Harga's House of Ribs. Harga is impressed by both the speed and the quality of his work. Cutwell prepares for Kelly's coronation. Cutwell informs her that the dome may reach them before her coronation. Cutwell explains that Mort is becoming more real, nearly as real as Death. That's on 219. After working out the nodes, Albert, Mort, and Isabel collect the hourglasses associated with them. Isabel notices Mort's eyes changing and other changes too. He's slowly becoming death. After threatening to take Albert back to the world so that his time will finally run out and enlisting the help of both Isabel and Albert's latest biography, Mort convinces Albert to help him. Albert writes down a spell that will slow time over a small area. Mort has to complete his duty before he can use it. Albert's biography confirms it. Albert locks himself in his room. Mort is stressed. There isn't enough time for him to accomplish both everything he needs and wants to. Isabel insists on riding with him and trying to help him. Albert puts on his wizard's attire and casts a spell that causes him to disappear. Isabel and Mort ride over the disc together. They stop in the Agitian Empire where Mort severs the soul of the newly deceased Grand Vizier 9 turning mirrors from his body. He had failed to assassinate the boy emperor and instead died by his own poison. Albert reappears in the heart of Unseen University. He destroys the statue of himself. He tells Rincewind, now the assistant librarian at the university, to gather the 8 most senior wizards so they can perform the rite of Ashkente. The rite will summon death and hopefully put an end to all the nonsense that has been bothering Albert. Albert plans to return to the university in half an hour to perform the rite. He warns Rincewind that the other wizards better be ready, but first he needs a drink. Upon arrival, he discovers that he is an outstanding tab. Isabel and Mort ride to the Pyramids of Sort to collect the next soul. Albert returns to the university with a toad, the drum's landlord. He speaks to the wizards Rincewind gathered about the importance of having others respect you and demands that they clean up their acts, stop smoking, eat better, get more exercise, etc. He says he has more unfinished business to attend to while they set up the rite of Ashkente and toddles off. Mort severs the soul of a future concubine of King Zetzeput from its body. Mort says that he'll drop Isabel off somewhere before admitting that he won't save the princess, and that he has completed his apprenticeship. He has become death. He can hear the wizards calling to him. Isabel tries to keep him from answering their summons. The wizards summon death. After speaking with Albert, he comes to his senses. He vanishes with Albert, determined to put everything back in good working order. Mort awakens in the desert. At first, he fears he is out of time, but within moments, he is rushing towards Stolat with Isabel in tow, presumably to save his princess. Cutwell notices the barrier coming closer. The princess's coronation begins. The sacrificial elephant escapes before it can be sacrificed. The Duke rises from his seat alongside his thugs during all of the commotion caused by the elephant, and prepares to either kill or exile his niece so he can take the throne. Cutwell can see the barrier creeping closer and both knows and says that anything the Duke does won't matter. Isabel and Mort arrive at the castle in Stolat. Mort distracts the Duke, allowing Cutwell to knock him out. Cutwell crowns the princess. In order to save her, Mort decides to shepherd both her and Cutwell into Death's realm. It doesn't look like anyone is home, but surprise! Death and Albert are home. Isabel explains that she helped Mort because she thinks she's in love with him. Death yells at Mort for everything he has done. Mort challenges him. Mort fights Death with his sword. Death fights him with a scythe. They destroy several hourglasses during their battle, including that of the Duke of Stohelet, Kelly's uncle. Mort can't deliver the final blow. The tables turn, but Isabel steps in to defend Mort from Death. She says, "You're right, there's no justice. There's just you." That's on 286. She points out that Death has meddled with both her life and Albert's and wonders what the gods will demand for it. Death says they cannot demand anything of him since they answered him, eventually. After pushing her aside, Death prepares to strike the killing blow. He claims to be sorry for having to do what he is about to do. Mort says he understands. After the last grain of sand has fallen into the lower bulb of Mort's hourglass, Death turns it over. Cutwell, Kelly, Mort, and Isabel are at a wedding feast celebrating the marriage of Isabel and Mort, the new Duke and Duchess of Stohelet. Death arrives late to the party. He tells Mort that he has decided not to interest himself in human affairs any further, except officially, of course. That's on 292. He explains that he spoke to the gods to fit everyone into reality, that Mort must see to it that history takes place, also in 292. In other words, he is to unite the kingdoms, etc. Death gives Mort a wedding present, a pearl of reality, the one he created. Death also gives Mort his biography. Death departs to perform his duty. The pair say goodbye to one another. And that's the end of the book. Now, I just want to give a quick little book review. No particular order for the things I'm about to say. Basically, the first thing that comes to mind is that the Mort bit grew stale pretty swiftly, aka the bit where everyone would forget to mention Mort's name and often simply refer to him as boy. It was just like, I get it. No one remembers his name. I guess it goes into the fact that he's now basically Death and no one can really notice him in general, but it was just tiring. Like, every once in a while, if people said his name or called him something, it would have been nice. The novel wasn't as humorous as some of the others in the Discworld series. With that being said, it put me in a better mood by the time I had finished, which is similar to the vast majority of Pratchett's Discworld novels. I also thought that the novel was pretty fast-paced, and it seemed to have a logical progression, similar to Equal Rights. It didn't seem as spontaneous as the first two Discworld novels, which were The Color of Magic and The Light Fantastic. I appreciated how readers got to see Death develop as a character from someone who questioned the nature of fun and wondered what the point in a lot of human activity was, to someone who could appreciate certain aspects of life and unwind a little. I did appreciate seeing this development to some of the other characters mentioned largely in passing in previous novels like Isabel, but didn't really enjoy her as a character. She was just a tad too obnoxious for me to really like her. I also think Mort was a well-rounded character and relatable. He's just a tad awkward and he tries his best and does things he probably shouldn't do on a whim. Basically, he's impulsive, but who isn't at his age? He's a teenager and teenagers are basically known for being impulsive, at least a good chunk of the time. You know, age kind of tempers that tendency. So it was nice to see someone who was relatable. So I think it makes it easier to read a book. And I also like the fact that all of the characters, especially the main cast, were very distinct people. So you don't always see that in literature, and it's a little bothersome, but that definitely wasn't the case here. So that was very nice. Overall, I gave this a 3.7 out of 5 stars. I think that it's a very, very strong book, but the only thing I would have to say is that I would have liked it if it was just a tad funnier, but I can understand why it wasn't. I think it's really hard to incorporate things that are humorous into something that has, you know, darker connotations, just because, you know, he became basically Death's assistant and like a shepherd of Death. So I don't know if it would have made the most sense for it to be quite as funny as some of the other novels that come later. And there you have it. That is my summary and review of Mort, the 4th book in the Discworld series. If you like what you saw here today, please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you liked Mort or if you had another book in the series that you preferred. I always like to know what you guys think. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you know what's up, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye, guys.